So the distance formula is pretty self-explanatory. You are finding the distance of a segment, usually between 2 points. This is your distance formula. Yes, you have to have it memorized. It will not be provided for you. You'll look, it's got a big old square root on top of it. You take your x's and subtract them and then square it. Take your y's, subtract them, square it, add those two together, and then root it. This sub stuff that's down here just means that you have to pick your x and your y, the first one, from the same point. So if you have a point here and a point here, if you pick this x to go first, then you have to pick this y to go first. You could do it the other way around. You could pick this one first and this one first for your parentheses, and that's fine as long as you're consistent, and we'll talk about that. Other words that mean distance are length. So find the distance of AC. So some people think that they can come in here and try to count, but those aren't whole blocks. So you have to use the distance formula. So we need some points. So our point for A, remember x comes first, and x looks like it's going left 8, so negative 8. And then it looks like it's going down 3, so negative 3. C looks like it goes right 7 and up 5. So then all I have to do is plug it into my distance formula, and I'll write the formula so you can see it. And again, I'm not writing the subscript stuff. I'm just going to make sure that whatever x I pick first, I'm going to pick the same y first. So under the square root, I've got my first x, which I'm going to use this one, so negative 8, minus my other x, which is 7, plus, and then I'm going to pick the x that came first, I have to pick his y. So negative 3 minus, and then the other y, which is a 5 squared. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is you can either do this by hand and in your head, or you can use your calculator. If you want to use your calculator, that's fine. You just have to be really careful as to how you plug it in. So I'm going to show you how to plug it in if I can get my calculator to come up. There he is. Okay, so do not start with your square root, because multiple choice, some of these answers still have the square root on it. You are going to start typing with your parentheses. So parentheses, negative 8 minus 7, parentheses, squared, plus, parentheses, negative 3 minus 5, parentheses, squared, and hit enter. So I have a 289. That's not my answer, because remember, we still have the square root here. So it's the square root of 289. So now what I need to do is see if that is a perfect square. So I'm going to square root 289, and I get a 17. If I had gotten a decimal, I probably would have gone back and left it as that, but because it's a perfect number, I'm going to go ahead and give me the 17. Number 2, find the distance of AC. Okay, so first we need our point. So the point for A looks like it goes left 8 and up 6, and C goes right 6 and down 3. So I have my 2 points. So now I'm going to plug into my distance formula. Remember, you start with your x's. So I'm going x minus x. So negative 8 minus 6 squared plus, And since I picked the -8 first for my x's, I have to pick the 6 first for my y's. So 6 minus -3. Be careful here with your double negative. It's a minus from the formula, and it's a negative because it's a -3. But you know that when we have a minus and negative, we always change it to a plus plus. So now I grab my calculator, and I don't start with my square root. I start with my parentheses. -8 minus 6 squared plus 6. Now please don't enter plus plus because your calculator will see that as an error. You know that it's just +3. Hit enter. So 277, but that's my number underneath the root. So now I'm going to square root 277. And I got 16.6. So if it's multiple choice, if they go decimal, then you go decimal. If they left it as the square root, then you leave it as the square root. If it's not multiple choice, like it's just for me, you can give me both. That's fine. If you give me the 16.6, make sure that you show me that it came from a root 277. Always show me that number up underneath the root. Just be really careful. A really common mistake here is just to write 277, and that's not the case. It's still under the square root. Okay, Brock and Shawn begin from the same location on a map. Brock walks east for 4 blocks and north for 5 blocks. Shawn walks 3 blocks west and 5 blocks south. How far apart are the two boys? Okay, so let's think about this. If this is where they start, such that Brock walks east, well, which way is east? And that's to the right. So he walks east for 4 blocks. And then north, so that's up, for 5 blocks. So his coordinates are 4, 5. Shawn, starting at the same corner, the origin, walks 3 blocks west and 5 blocks south. So his coordinates would be -3, -5. So now I'm going to put this into my distance formula because I'm finding out how far apart are they. So I'm going to go x minus x. It doesn't matter which one you pick first. You can do 4 minus a -3, or you could do -3 minus 4. It doesn't matter. I'm going to start with a 4. So 4 minus a -3 squared plus, now do my y's. Now since I picked my 4 first, I have to pick my 5 first. 5 minus a -5. You know that when you have a double negative, you change it to a plus plus. And then we are ready to enter it into our calculator. Always starting with the parentheses, not the square root. So parentheses, 4 plus 3 squared plus 5 squared gives me 149. But you know that that's still under the root. And that could be your answer, but you need to check and see if it's a perfect square. So the square root of 149 gives me a decimal, so 12.2. So I would take either one of these, but if it's multiple choice and they go decimals, then you go here, and if it's a square root, then you go there. What is the distance between the points for -6 and -1 5? And I'm looking at my answers and I don't see any decimals. So if it's perfect, it's going to be either the 10 or the 16. If it's not perfect, it's going to be the root 10, the root 96, or the root 146. Okay, so let's put this into our distance formula. I'm going to use this point first. So my x would be 4 minus my other x would be a -1. Then my y that's first is a -6, and my second y is a 5. I've got a double negative there, so I'm going to go ahead and change that. Grab my calculator. Start with the parentheses, not the square root. So 4 plus 1 squared plus negative 6 minus 5 squared. Enter, and it's a 146. So I have the square root of 146. But then I need to test it and see if that's a perfect square. And it's not. I got 12.08. So in looking at the multiple choice, do I go with the 12.08 or do I go with the root 146? And the answer is root 146 because 12.08 is not a choice. Justin made a map of his town on a coordinate grid. The mall is located at 4.2. The library is located at negative 1.3. What is the approximate distance between the mall and the library? So I'm going to do the distance formula. I'm going to let this one be my first point. So 4 minus a minus 1 squared plus 2 minus 3 squared. And then I grab my calculator. Start with the parentheses. 4 plus 1 squared plus 2 minus 3 squared. 26. So I have a root 26. I have all decimals, so I need to take my root 26 and see what decimal it is. 5.099. So that would round to 5.10. A triangle has vertices at 2, 4, 3, negative 1, and negative 2, 2. What is the approximate perimeter? Well, what does the word perimeter mean? It is the distance all the way around the triangle. So I have to find 3 distances here because a triangle has 3 sides. So I have to find all 3 distances and then I have to add it up. It also said approximate, which means I'm going to have a decimally kind of answer, but if you look at my multiple choice, those are all whole numbers. So I'm going to round to the nearest whole number once I get my answer. These are a pain in the butt because I have to do the distance formula 3 times. So I'm going to do the distance formula between this point and this point first. So x minus x squared plus y minus y squared. And then I'm going to do the distance formula between this point and this point, the middle one and the last one. So x minus x squared plus y minus y squared. I'm going to go ahead and plus plus on my double negatives. Do that one too. And then for the last one, I have to do the first point and the last point. So let's see, that's going to be x minus x squared plus y minus y squared. And I've got some double negatives here. And I grab my calculator and I start with parentheses on the first one. So 2 minus 3 squared plus 4 plus 1 squared gives me root 26. Okay. Then on my second one, 3 plus 2 squared plus negative 1 plus 2 squared. And that's also a root 26. And then to do the last one, 2 plus 2 squared plus 4 plus 2 squared, 52. So root 52. Now I have to add them together. This is the tricky part. I'm not adding a 26, a 26, and a 52. I have to add a root 26 and a root 26 and a root 52. So square root 26. Now you can see in my calculator, it starts with a parentheses inside my root. So I have to close that parentheses. Otherwise, it's going to totally mess my answer up. Plus square root of 26. And again, I have to close that parentheses. Plus the square root of 52. Close your parentheses. Hit enter. I got 17.4. Then I come over here to my answers. I want the approximate right answer. So if I'm rounding, that's just going to give me 17. If it was 17.5, I would round up to 18, but 18 is not a choice. But 17.4 stays at 17. Okay, so we're going to try that one again. Different numbers. The triangle has vertices at 2, 3, 4, -1, and -1, -5. What's the approximate perimeter of the triangle? So perimeter means distance. Triangle means I'm going to have all three sides. So the first one, I'm going to do the distance between the first two. X minus x squared plus y minus y squared. The next one, I'm going to do the second one and the third one. So 4 minus a minus 1 squared plus minus 1 minus a minus 5 squared. And then the last one, I'm going to do the first point and the last point. So 2 minus a minus 1 squared, 3 minus a minus 5 squared. And then I grab my handy dandy calculator. Start with my parentheses. 2 minus 4 squared plus 3 plus 1 squared. So root 20. Four plus 1 squared plus -1 plus 5 squared. Nope. -1 plus 5 squared. There we go. Root 41. And then 2 plus 1 squared plus 3 plus 5 squared. I don't have a parentheses in the front. There we go. And that gives me a root 73. This is where a lot of people mess it up, is in this very last step. When you plug them in, make sure you have your roots on top of each one individually. Close the parentheses after each root. If you have one of those calculators where the square root bar just continues going over the number, then you have to use your right arrow key to get out from under the root before you hit your plus sign. I didn't even hit a plus sign. There we go. 19.4. So we're going with 19. Okay, so again, pain in the butt because you've got to do the distance formula 3 times, but take your time, watch your signs, watch your X's and your Y's, and watch how you type it in the calculator. What is the distance between -3,1 and -6,3? Okay, so x minus x squared plus y minus y squared. Grab my calculator, and if you can do this in your head, that's even better. But you're welcome to do it on your calculator. Okay, that's a 13, but it's still under the root. And they didn't go decimals with any of their answers, so they want the square root of 13. Okay, last one. What is the distance between the point -3, 4 and the origin? What the heck is the origin? That's 0, 0. They're just making sure you know that. They're throwing a little vocabulary in there. So I'm going to do the distance. Now I'm going to say negative 3 minus 0 squared, because those are my x's. And then 4 minus 0 squared. Those are my y's. And I'm going to grab my calculator. And I got negative 3 minus 0 squared plus 4 minus 0 squared. Hit enter and I get a 25. So I have root 25. Now notice 25 is an answer. That's very tempting, but remember it's root 25. Well, if you don't know what the square root of 25 is, you can type it in on your calculator, square root 25, and hit enter, and you get a solid 5. So be really careful and don't jump to a too quick conclusion. Remember, once you get that number off your calculator, that 25 is still up under the square root. Okay? So take your time, go back, go look through this. Again, slow it down, do whatever you need to do so that you're comfortable with the distance formula.